Hello, everyone. My name's Raj Dutt, and I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO here at Grafana Labs. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to everyone who's joining us for ObservabilityCON 2023. So really glad everyone's here. It's fantastic that we've got a packed room. Last year we did this in New York. I'm really happy to do this, our third ObservabilityCON here in London. It's one of my favorite cities. Love the Indian food here. I think it's some of the best in the world. Can't stand the weather, though. I'm sure those of you who live here know exactly what I mean. My hotel ran out of umbrellas this morning, typical. But it's great to be here, seriously. So a special welcome to all our customers, all our users. Who here is using Grafana today, either a customer or in the open source? By the way, raise your hands. It's amazing to see, amazing to see. So, we've got people from all over the world. Who's from outside the UK? Who flew in on a plane? Wow, it's actually more than I expected. So some people have traveled quite far to get here. Really appreciate that. We've got a great keynote for you today and a great 2 days here. ObservabilityCON is all about sharing, learning from each other. We're here to share what we've been up to as a company over the last year within the observability space. And most of all, we're going to have fun together and learn from each other. So thank you, everyone, for being here. And a special thank you to some of our customer advisory board members who've flown in from all over the world. Our CAB has been really useful to the company to kind of help us with our product strategy, messaging. And we've got CAB members from companies like Bloomberg, Sky, Just Eats, Wells Fargo, BlackRock. And so really appreciate our CAB coming and participating in ObservabilityCON. And also a warm welcome to everyone live streaming from all over the world. This event was bigger than we thought it would be. I think we were planning for 200 or 300 people. We ended up maxing out the venue at 300 plus people and had about 200 people on the waiting list. So that's surprising in a good way. London kind of showed up New York, which tends to happen. So really, really appreciate it. So during this keynote, we're going to share a whole bunch of product updates, goings on from the Grafana Labs community, from our engineering teams, from our product teams. And we've also got a really exciting announcement, an acquisition announcement that we're going to unveil during the keynote. So I'm not going to steal Merle's thunder, but that's coming later in this session. So before we get started, I wanted to reflect on the last year a little bit, as we always do during ObservabilityCONs, and kind of just recap where we've been as a company. So it's been an incredible year. Speaking personally, I've continued my MO of revenge traveling over the last 2 years. I've probably been on the road about 300 days out of the last 365 days. Just came in from Singapore last night, headed to Vegas tomorrow. Love traveling. The team at Grafana Labs is an extremely global team. We like to say we're not a multinational company, we're more post-geographic. And we have Grafanistas in about 50 cities around the world, which is really incredible. We're truly an international organization, just like our community. Special moment last year was Grafana, the open source project, hit its 10th year anniversary. Hard to believe that the project is now 10 years old, and that culminated in the Grafana 10 release, which was quite a monumental release that we celebrated in the birthplace of Grafana at GrafanaCON in Stockholm, Sweden, a few months ago. And then looking back at the last year, I also have to acknowledge that it's been a challenging year for many of us from a macroeconomic standpoint, right? Interest rates are up. Valuations are down, money's more expensive. Everyone really cares about profitability, economic, sustainable growth. It's no longer about growth at all costs. Put up your hand if that's kind of impacted your poise in terms of your company and the way you think about observability. Not surprising to see. And for those that didn't put up your hand, congratulations on having infinite amounts of money, I suppose. But this macroeconomic situation has definitely impacted our product strategy in quite a big way. And what I mean by that is I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that I think the entire observability space, Grafana Labs included perhaps, has actually done quite a terrible job historically in aligning sort of the customer value of what you're paying for, given the amount of data and the exploding data volumes that are coming off all your applications and your infrastructure, right? Said another way, data volumes and cost are going like this, almost exponential, whereas the value that many of you are getting from your data and from your observability platforms are more going like this, maybe asymptotic. And that relationship is something that it's been weighing heavily on our minds the last few years, particularly during the last year and a half. And so that's been a big reason behind a lot of our product strategy, including things like adaptive telemetry, adaptive metrics, adaptive logs, that our Chief Technology Officer, Tom, is going to get into later on in the keynote. But macroeconomy aside, I feel extremely fortunate and proud, not only for the community around Grafana Labs, but the company itself. And that is in no small part thanks to all of you. Whether you're a customer, whether you're just a user of our open source projects, giving us feedback, helping us build better technology. Sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, a sincere thank you to all of our users, community members, and customers. We couldn't be here today without your support, and you really help us do what we do at Grafana Labs. So speaking of what we do, I'd like to just recap two of our core, almost founding tenets, if you will. And these were true when we started the company 9 years ago. They're still true today. In some ways, they're more obvious now than they were 9 years ago, but I'll just recap two of the core tenets that we really believe in as a company. The first one we call Big Tent, and you might have seen that on some of our videos, and we consider this to be kind of a manifestation of the Big Tent, because we really believe in the wider ecosystem, right? So unlike a lot of other vendors, I'd argue almost any other vendor within the observability space, we don't require you to send all your data to our platform in order to analyze it, in order to visualize it, in order to understand it, right? Grafana is all about interoperability with the wider ecosystem. And we've had these data source plugins for other vendors, whether they're commercial vendors like Dynatrace or Datadog, or other open source projects like MySQL, Redis, Elasticsearch. And so that has really created this rich ecosystem that we're privileged enough to try to be at the center of with Grafana. And more importantly, it allows you to have choice in your observability strategy, right? Chances are your teams, your companies are using different tools, different vendors, and we really want to support that and let you kind of chart your own observability journey without being locked into a particular provider or a particular backend. And that is a unique approach that we are committed to, and it is sort of like a founding principle of the way we develop our software. And the second thing that we really believe in is open source. And you're going to hear a lot about our open source software and some of the new developments within the open source landscape that we've been working on over the last year. We like to say at Grafana Labs that open source is in our DNA, and we really believe that, right? When we started the company, we really felt and we had high degrees of conviction that within the observability ecosystem, open source was going to commoditize, democratize, and compress the entire observability space. When we got started in 2014, there was not a lot of agreement that that would happen. Open source was seen as the cheap and cheerful alternative to the proprietary vendors. And today, in no small part due to our software, but also the wider ecosystem, I think that open source is truly where all the cutting-edge technology is being developed within observability. And I'm sure many of you feel that way today. So it's been quite a wild ride in terms of the open source ecosystem within observability. And like I said, open source is at the heart of what we do. It's in our DNA. Obviously, Grafana is at the center of that, and Grafana now has over 1 million active installations all over the world. Teams small, big, some of the largest companies in the world. Some of them aren't even our customers, and they're using our open source software, which is great. We continue to invest in projects that we didn't start. Projects like Prometheus, where we employ almost half of the Prometheus maintainers and are a driving force behind that project. And we've also, over the last year or two, really gotten involved in open telemetry, We're one of the top 10 contributors to OpenTelemetry, and we have a governing committee seat on the OpenTelemetry CNCF project. And Tom's going to talk a little bit about this in a minute, and I think most of you realize this, but we've come a long way since Grafana itself, right? Act 1 was really Grafana, the visualization software that everyone knows. Act 2 was expanding that to things like logs, metrics, and traces with projects like Loki, Mimir, and Tempo. And that basically created this foundational array of open source software that we're now leveraging and building on top of as we enter Act 3. And so we're going to talk about a lot of open source projects today, projects like Flare for profiles, Grafana On Call, Faro, Beyla, and it's been a pretty impressive journey in terms of the amount of innovation that we've done. And one call out that I'm extremely proud of is the way that we innovate at Grafana Labs. It's not top down, it's very much organic. It happens at the edges from our incredibly innovative and talented engineering teams. It happens from feedback we get from the community. And so that really is a unique way that we develop software that I'm incredibly proud about. And so lots of open source. We've come a long way as a company. We're now over 1,000 employees. And we passed an interesting milestone over the last year where now the majority of our revenue comes from Grafana Cloud, which we're really excited about. And Grafana Cloud is rapidly becoming the preferred way and the most valuable way to consume the entire Grafana stack and sort of realize all of the innovation that we're creating as a company. So now, to tell you more about our open source activities, as well as Grafana Cloud, I'd like to introduce the Chief Technology Officer at Grafana Labs. I know he's super excited to be here, so excited he couldn't even put on his trousers today. Please welcome our CTO, Tom Wilkie.
Thank you. Cheers. Yeah. I wondered if Raj was going to get a shorts joke in there. I'm not going to make a joke about Raj because he's my boss. Yeah, welcome to London, everybody. I wanted to add my own welcome. I'm actually based in London. I live a couple of miles north in Stoke Newington. And if those were wondering, that allowed me to actually bring my 3D printer to the show. So if you've seen on the stand, there's a Prusa 3D printer printing a little V6 engine block monitored by Grafana and Prometheus, just for fun more than anything. Anyway, so I want to kind of continue where Raj left off, talking a little bit about LGTM, right, and what it means to us as an organization, as a community. We started this journey into building our own databases about 6 years ago, and as Loki said, as Raj said, we built Loki for logs, we built Tempo for traces, we built Mimir for metrics. The LGTM strategy for us actually means kind of three things, right? We actually think about this not just in terms of the databases that we built, but if you rewind kind of 6, 7 years ago, Grafana only really had support for time series data and metrics, right? And about 6 years ago, we added the first logging data sources, the first tracing data sources to Grafana. So it was really the point at which we went from being a monitoring and metrics kind of community to an observability organization. It also means, it's obviously a kind of a bit of a pun, right? LGTM is a hat tip to the engineers and developers in the audience. It's the thing you write on your PR when you're ready to merge it, right? Funny story, we were kind of doing a survey internally within the company to see if people knew what LGTM stood for. And like a load of people thought it meant, let's get this merged. Like the go-to-market team thought, let's get the money. Obviously, it looks good to me. Anyway, in New York last year, we went into each of these projects in quite a lot of detail. We talked about the work we'd done in the past year. We talked about the work we were planning on doing. And I would love to do that. But as you can see, there are way too many projects now, and we don't have the time. So I would like to just focus on Loki, right? Loki is our log aggregation system. We launched the project about 5 years ago at KubeCon in Seattle. I can remember the day we launched it because I was sleeping in a shed, very long story. It was very cold, and I burst a blood vessel in my eye, so I looked like a zombie. And it was just amazing. We launched it, it went to the top of Hacker News, it sat there for almost 24 hours, and we were all frantically asking questions, changing the logo at the last minute, because the last one was not very appropriate. Anyway, it's crazy to think it's 5 years old, and I want to give you a bit of a preview into what's coming in Loki 3.0. Firstly, I want to talk about queries. Right, we've achieved a lot. Loki has about 110,000 active kind of clusters in the wild in open source. And we've learned from those users that developers love it. Like, they really get the kind of trade-offs we made in the original design, where we kind of imported a lot of the ethos from Prometheus, the label-based log streams, the ability to scale, the ability to be very cost-effective. But we also learned that there's a whole bunch of customers in organizations where the developers aren't the only people that use the log aggregation systems. And we're all new to this. That was a bit of a surprise to me, to be honest. It was a surprise to learn that, like, the last line of support in some kind of retail organizations actually go to your log aggregation system to look for lost orders. And I was like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that was the case. These kind of use cases, this needle in a haystack, this I'm searching for a unique order ID over the last kind of 90 days, petabytes of logs, this is actually like a pathologically bad use case for Loki. It wasn't designed to do that. We put a lot of time and effort over the past few years to make it better at that use case. We aggressively parallelize and scale up clusters on demand to really churn through petabytes of logs. But at the end of the day, this wasn't the best solution for that until now. So we've built Loki, in the next version of Loki, we've built a system in that really accelerates those needle in a haystack kind of queries. We use Bloom filters to kind of take trigrams or 4 grams of the log entries, we put them in a Bloom filter, and then we can filter down the actual search space down to something much, much smaller. And this way, we can actually speed up those needle in a haystack queries by up to 1,000 times. Obviously, headline figure, very large, but we've actually seen in practice order ID searches in large databases take like much, much quicker. This takes them from minutes to seconds. It's really quite impressive, I think. This, I think, and I hope we'll have this out soon. This allows you to have the best of both worlds, like a very developer-centric kind of Kubernetes native log aggregation system that can also be used by your support team and by your customer support team. So huge amount of more detail. There's a talk later that you should go to if you want to understand more about this. And all of this work is going on in the open source. And so you can go and join in and see what's going on. Raj alluded to adaptive metrics earlier. I know this is not about Loki, but I just want to kind of set the scene a little bit. We launched adaptive metrics in New York a year ago. Since then, we've had about hundreds, 150, hundreds of customers use it. It saved hundreds of millions of series and millions of dollars off of people's bills. Like, it's been super effective. This is becoming, as Raj said, this is becoming a kind of fundamental and pretty unique strategy to Grafana Labs to make it so that you only really have to store the amount of data you need to answer the queries that you ask. Right? And we'll do this fully automatically, and it adapts in real time. As you ask different queries, we'll end up storing different amounts of data. This is like part of what we call our long-term greedy approach, right? We know short-term, this is reducing people's bills, right? But long-term, we think this aligns more closely with the value. They're going to want to use Mimir more because of this. And they're going to realize that we're more aligned with what they need, what our customers need. And so, okay, as a part of a Loki section, it should be pretty obvious what I'm about to say. In fact, I think Raj kind of teased it earlier in his section. We are working on adaptive logs. We've taken the same techniques and we're applying them to logging. It's super early. We're classing this as a research project. Working on it now for about 4 months. Found some really great gains, and we've tried 2 or 3 different techniques, and we've been really impressed. We've been doing this on our own internal logging so far, right? And what we're really looking for now is, a handful, 2 or 3 big customers or big users of Loki who want to work with us, who can, give us access to their logs, allow us to experiment a little bit, work really closely with the engineering team. One of the things we've always done really well, and something I'm incredibly proud of as the team, is like our customers and users have direct access to our engineers, and we want to repeat that with adaptive logs. So there'll be a QR code at the Ask the Experts booth where the 3D printer is. Go and scan that. Talk to Ed. Where's Ed? Is he in here somewhere? Can't see him. Talk to Ed. Sign up for this. It's going to be super, super exciting. So that's a little bit of a hint as to what's coming in Loki 3.0. Coming soon. We hope it will be beginning of next year. But we try not to do conference-driven development here. So we're very much kind of, it'll be ready when it's ready. Beginning of next year, we hope. Okay, and now, final thing on the kind of cost management. As Raj said, this is a big theme for us as a company, especially in the current climate. And so we've been bringing together all of the little tools that we've built to help you manage your bill into one place. This is things like adaptive metrics, the UI for that. We have an exporter that allows you to export your logs into an S3 bucket for longer retention. We have a cardinality management tool that allows you to see who's driving usage, which team, which namespace, which service is driving usage of your telemetry. And then we've got a billing usage groups, which allow you to kind of do chargeback. We've brought all of these things together into our cost management hub. One place to go, one place to find them, one place to figure out, which one's for you, which one you need. And one place to kind of really help manage your costs. So that's gone GA today. That's available for everyone on Grafana Cloud, and please try it out. Now, I want to kind of transition into the next section a little bit, and I want to talk about this. This is hopefully a relatively familiar diagram. It comes from the Crossing the Chasm book. One thing we learned about our open source projects, right? They've become super popular, really widely used amongst the community. What we've even seen is these kind of early adopters of our technology have been getting up on stage and evangelizing on our behalf. I was just in Chicago last week at KubeCon, and almost half the talks I went to had Grafana or Prometheus or Loki, talking about it. Maybe it was just used to demo the application that they were talking about, but it's great to see our users evangelizing for us. It's the highest form of flattery. But what we've also seen is the audience has started to shift, right? The audience is less and less these kind of early adopters and innovators who want to spend, days, weeks, months learning how to get the best out of these tools. And the audience is now more mainstream. They've got day jobs, right? They don't really have the time or the expertise to learn about, the ins and outs of writing PromQL or how to build the best Grafana dashboards, right? They're looking for something that just works out the box. So about 2 years ago, we started thinking about this as like Act 3 for the company. What do? Up until this point, we've been selling technology. We've been building really cool open source technology. But we wanted to start to build solutions for our customers so that they, could get value out of this stack quicker. And so we're starting to think about this more as Act 3, as easier LGTM, right? We've taken the kind of problem space, divided it up into 3. We think in 3s. So we've taken infrastructure observability, right? This is helping SREs and DevOps practitioners understand the behavior of software infrastructure. You can think here we've built curated dashboards. We've built a Kubernetes app. We've made it really easy to understand what's going on in your infrastructure. We think about testing, where we've joined forces with a company called K6 to kind of build the best load testing tool in Grafana Cloud. And we've also got a synthetic monitoring service, which helps you know if your website is up from various different locations. And finally, we built a suite of tools about incident response: Grafana On-Call, Grafana Instant, and Grafana Alerting, all integrated heavily to make sure you can collaborate around solving incidents. In each of these areas, we're constantly innovating and releasing new work, right? So in the infrastructure observability space, just last week at KubeCon, we announced a Kubernetes cost monitoring solution embedded into our Kubernetes app. You can basically just see how much a namespace is costing you to run. In the load testing world, we've been heavily investing in combining K6 and Tempo. So from a load test, you can drill all the way down into your application to see where the failures or slowness came from. And today, going GA today, is our Grafana SLO management solution, allowing you to build, allowing you to easily configure and report on and really defend kind of these sophisticated error budget-based SLOs. Something I'm really proud of. It's the only way you should really be alerting, in my opinion. But as you can tell by the space on the graph, there's something bigger to announce. Today, we are announcing the GA of our application observability solution. So a fourth pillar in the third act of the company. And I'd, at this point, like to hand over to Merle, who also gets the pleasure of teasing. I've got to tease, sorry. Merle gets the pleasure of announcing the big news as well. Thank you.
Hey. Ah, cool. I'm so excited. Thank you all. My name is Merle Kranz. I'm an engineering director at Grafana Labs, and I have some great news for y'all. We are announcing in general availability today, application observability. My team has been working on this for a little over a year. We also started the public preview in August. Thank you to all of the customers who participated in our public preview and gave us great feedback and really helped us put our best foot forward here. We really appreciate you. This application observability solution is open and opinionated. You instrument your application using open source OpenTelemetry libraries. You take that and send the data that those instrumentation libraries produce via the OTLP protocol into our backend databases. So you're using open standards and you're sending it to open source components. We then visualize that data from our backend using our new application observability solution. Tom loves to talk about the 3 acts of Grafana. The first act was open source Grafana. That's the big tent, visualize your data from any data source. In our second act, we built those observability backends, Loki, Tempo, and Mimir. And now we're putting it all together into a complete end-to-end solution that your application engineers can use to reduce their mean time to resolution and connect their application insights with their infrastructure insights. So we announced last year at ObservabilityCON, Faro. That is our front-end monitoring solution. Faro is a web SDK that you can integrate into your JavaScript front ends. Use it to send data either to Grafana Cloud, or if you prefer, you can send it to a receiver in the Grafana agent. If you're running in Grafana Cloud, you can also visualize that data in a front-end observability plugin. And you can use it to understand the performance of your application as it exists for your users, as they see it and feel it, using Web Vitals. If you also instrument with traces, you can follow the root cause of any errors that might be caused by your backend, but that you're seeing on your front end. By adding general application observability, now based on OpenTelemetry, you can also figure out what's going on the back end. So if your application is written in Java or .NET or Python or one of these interpreted languages, it can be easily instrumented with OpenTelemetry SDKs. They send their data in the OTLP format. And at Grafana, we are also contributing to these efforts. So we've got engineers working on the .NET and the Java SDKs for OpenTelemetry, and they're adding things to those SDKs based on what our customers are telling us that they need. OpenTelemetry makes it not only possible for us to speed up our execution, to offer you a broader set of solutions, a broader set of things that we can instrument, it also means that you have more confidence that when you instrument your code with something, that it doesn't make you dependent on us. So your effort in instrumenting your application isn't wasted no matter what solution you choose. So enough tell, it's time for some show. Going to, oh, it wants us to do a software update. We're not going to do that. All right, so first thing I'm going to show you, we have the services overview. This is where you're going to start, right? You can see here the applications. This is the OpenTelemetry demo. You can see multiple languages here. I imagine that your landscapes probably have less than 10 languages, but probably more than one. So this allows you to observe, doesn't depend on what the languages that you're working with. Then you can also see a quick overview of the red metrics, the rate, error, and duration. Or you can also click into any of these services. So let's take the ad service. You can click into any of these services, get a more detailed view of the duration, the errors, and the rate. You can also get a distribution on the duration. You can see the upstream and downstream dependencies, how they're performing, so that you can understand the way the performance of these of the downstream dependencies affects the performance of your application and the way your application or your service is affecting the performance of other services. So we can, here we have you can also see it broken down by operation. So if there's a specific operation that's having problems, in this case, something seems to be up with the get ads. If there's a specific operation, you can see that broken out. And because this particular application, or this particular service rather, is a Java service, you can see a dashboard showing you all of the Java-specific data around this service. So heap memory utilization, garbage collection. We can also look at the service map, which allows you to see more graphically this service in the context of the services that it calls and that call into this service. And we can also look at, again, within easy clicks, we can look at the logs, we can look at the traces, and up here we have access to, because this is deployed in Kubernetes, we can see, for example, what node this is deployed into. So if there's maybe a problem with the performance of the node, we can find it very quickly by popping right over to the Kubernetes plugin, where you can see CPU, memory usage, all of the details that might help you debug the interrelationship between an application problem and an infrastructure problem. All right, let's go back to the presentation. Some of y'all might find it difficult to use the OpenTelemetry SDKs. Maybe you're using a compiled language like C++ or Go. Maybe you've got a component that you don't have the code for, that you're deploying a component in your landscape. Or maybe you've got a component that uses mixed versions in some way that makes it impossible to pick a specific OpenTelemetry SDK. If all of that's true, we still have a solution for you to help you instrument your applications. We have put together a solution based on eBPF that we are also announcing in GA today. eBPF works by allowing you to decorate application and kernel calls and track them and then send that data into the cloud. We'll go into a little more detail on what that means in a session this afternoon. But it is this point where I'm extremely proud to announce Grafana Beyla. So Beyla leverages OpenTelemetry transport protocol. So if your monitoring solution can ingest OTLP, ours can. Beyla is also fully open source and licenses as Apache License v2. So you have the ability to deploy this today almost regardless of what other pieces you're using of our solutions. And because it's eBPF, it means no code, just one command to deploy it. It works in Kubernetes clusters, it works in your Docker containers, it works on bare metal. And it achieves all of this while instrumenting things that would otherwise be impossible to get that visibility into, precisely because it's built on eBPF. All of this together creates an absolutely fabulous solution. So thank you all. Thank you all for all of the support and feedback that you've given us in building the solution. I also want to thank the Grafanistas who've contributed to this, not only the App-Only team, the Grafana team, the Tempo team. We've also got upcoming features that have been contributed to by the alerting team, by the Pirate Scope team. We're really, really excited about this. So I'm going to give an applause for my team on this point. Y'all thought I was done, didn't you? This actually brings us to the high note of our keynote. With the application and observability and the infrastructure observability, we have solutions that improve your ability to navigate across the data, but we also want to improve your ability to find the relevant data. We've improved the speed of search. We're working on improving it further so that you can search through that haystack at the fastest speed possible. But we think we can do better still for you. We think we can reduce the size of the haystack that needs to be searched through. And in our search for the best solutions in this space, we found Manoj and his team on the Asserts. I am super excited to announce that Asserts and Manoj have joined Grafana Labs. It is, not quite done yet. As we got to know them, we were deeply impressed with their commitment to open source, their know-how in the field, the incredible usefulness of the innovation that they have been putting together with their solutions. We immediately hit it off with the Asserts team. We saw great opportunities for integrating with their technology. They have such an amazing, innovative approach to correlating data from across all of the observability landscape. And we are really, really looking forward to working together with the Asserts team. So we've made the Asserts team and Manoj Acharya the newest member of Grafana, the fabulous Manoj.
Thank you. Well, let me savor this moment. It feels a little unreal because literally just about a year ago in New York City, I was sitting among you and learning about what's new in Grafana. Because so let's step back for a moment. Let me tell you the story about myself and my team. So we started, I have been doing observability for over 20 years. As an engineer, you want to understand what the heck is going on in the code, so let's just figure it out, right? That's how I got into the space. Now, I used to work at a company which you might have seen the logo there in the big tent bucket. It's called AppDynamics. I was a fifth engineer there, kind of built a lot of agent technology in the early days, and later on running end-user monitoring, like the Faro version of AppDynamics and everything else around it. So, but I was super engaged in the open source community by visiting the Monitorama conference. It was like, because my customers would come and ask us, okay, well, you see all these new projects popping up? What's going on with them? And we love the Grafana dashboards more than your dashboard technology, right? So I started going to the Monitorama conference in 2014. I was in the room with Torkel launching Grafana. And I would watch the PromCon talks on my YouTube videos. And then in 2019, Tom is already high with red metrics and going all over the world. And then he's announcing Loki at Monitorama, right? You know the Tom, right? Tom just goes around the world and talks about the projects that he's working on. He's like Christopher Nolan, launching a new movie, new Batman movie every year. So anyway, I was always watching their projects. And back at home being AppDynamics, I was leading the team, and we were a bunch of engineers. We had built the product from ground up. And we knew the product because we kind of built it, and we loved the company, so we stuck around, right? But then the company was growing, the team was growing, but the on-call team could not quite grow for a very simple reason. There were very few people who actually understood how to debug the system, because every time there's a new problem, there's a new set of metrics you need to look at. So every time an incident happens, yes, I had a dashboard that I had built and maybe an alerts rule that I wrote before, but then there is this, I go to the dashboard, it's empty, or it doesn't have all the metrics, So it's like the simple question, alert happened, incident happened, where do I start? So this is like a very fundamental question, that was always stuck in our head. So we went around, we looked around, and nobody's really solving it, It's a problem worth solving. So we got out of AppDynamics and started thinking about it. And today I'm excited to share the approach we took and how we went about it. And it's actually running on Grafana Cloud. Can you believe it? So, okay, let me switch to my demo environment. Let me clear this up to make it a little more fun. So what Asserts fundamentally is doing is think of metrics, right? So let me describe what I mean by metrics. To me, we have all the pillars, right? The logs, the metrics, and traces. But I love metrics because you can understand them. They have labels that describe what the heck it is, where it came from, what it is talking about, like a counter or a gauge or a histogram. Then when you have traces, you can always transform them into metrics. When you have logs, with Loki, like from QL you can run Loki QL, log QL there to even generate metrics. And with the metrics, you can actually scan the labels and build this service graph. So actually, let me switch to 5 minutes here to make it more fun. So what Asserts is doing is actually scanning, in this case, it's scanning all the Prometheus metrics coming on this demo cluster that I'm running here, and building the service graph. Now, it's learning about the new services, new parts, new nodes. If you're running a Kafka cluster, it'll learn about topics, and we also have working with the team to work the Amazon integration. It'll read the CloudWatch metrics and read your Dynamo tables, SQS queues. So it's literally a graph which is an entity system for your data. So think of when you think about understanding your data, you think of schema. And the schema is an entity system. An entity system is now built in a property graph. That's what is running behind the scenes. So it's now in this particular cluster, it has discovered all the pods, node services. But let me clear this up, and let me run some quick queries here. So I want to look at all the pod, which name is not null. So this pulls up a bunch of pods. They want to look at what nodes they're attached to, what volumes they're attached to these pods, and the services these pods belong to. And then I also want to look at these services are probably connected to other services. So now all of this data, the reason I'm pulling it up to make it more fun, it's kind of, in the observability world, they call it Death Star. You might have heard this term. It gets pretty busy very quickly, and it's almost useless. So we have all seen our Death Stars. We all have our Death Stars. But we kind of need to navigate our way into the Death Star, right? So let me run some quick graph qualifying criteria ad here. I'll just say, I am the database guy in this company. I run MySQL. So Now I'm looking at only the parts of MySQL pods and who is talking to MySQL. But, and then my boss told me, dude, I hear about this thing called MongoDB. Let's just run it, right? So now I run MongoDB too. So now maybe, I'm the 2-pizza team, 3-pizza team, doesn't matter. But me and my team, we own the databases. And this is my app. Because the definition of app was something that was very nebulous to us. Like when the architecture is constantly changing, you are adding new people, you are expanding your teams, the definition of app is constantly changing. So you can actually describe your intent into this graph and build a definition of a graph based on your role and where you sit in the organization. Like I was a VP of engineering, and I used to run this company, this particular application, which was called Robot Shop Services. Okay, basically it meant all the things that belong to Rames to Robot Shop, they belong to Manoj's team. Okay, so he's the VP of Robot Shop namespace. Now we are looking at the data for the last 5 minutes. Now let me do something here. I will change the time range to 24 hours. And you would probably notice that suddenly these rings have colors in them. So, I mean, you can see my T-shirt, the blue, orange, and red. So it stands for, we call them assertions, and let me show you what they are. So what Asserts has actually done right now, it has not only painted these rings, it has also sorted them out. So this set of services are sorted by the score called assertions. The idea of assertion being, you can understand, we are all engineers. We want to assert on our software. This is a check. So it's running a lot of checks. We don't want to write a lot of PromQLs. PromQL is fun. I read the book, but I don't remember all the syntax all the time. So it's kind of created the meta model of all your red metrics, use metrics, golden signals, understood what signals we look out for, and running the checks on them all the time. So in this case, the shipping service is ranked at the top because it has somehow got the highest assertion score in the last 24 hours. Now, I want to getting curious, like what exactly happened. Let me quickly click this button here. It says troubleshooting workbench. Now, we kind of debated on this idea, what to, let me change this type. Literally, there's an incident going on right now, looks like. Okay. So when I click the root cause panel's bank bench, it's kind of pulling the data for I just changed it last 2 days here, but I'm starting to see that there is a bunch of interesting pattern here. It's like a flame graph of all your assertions. Call them assertions, call them alerts. I like them called assertions because alerts is what I wake up for. Assertions, I do not wake up for. Assertion checks are happening in my code. If I get curious, I can look into them. But in this case, there are a lot of them happening. So let's look into them. And here is the list of things that is categorized. We call them safe. We have this thing called stay safe with asserts. So being like saturation, amending change, anomalies, failures, and errors. And quickly, when I hover over my mouse here, I can see the shipping service ranked at the top, had a version change, and a lot more interesting things going on here. This happens to be a Java service, my favorite language, and having a lot of garbage collection. A latency anomaly on one specific API. It's not like the whole system is breaking up, but this API is in trouble after the new version upgrade. So let's quickly jump to the summary view here. So what the summary view actually does, it shows you the timeline view and this mini graph. Remember the whole graph we saw before? Super busy. Now we have a mini graph there in the corner, which is showing only the components which are really in trouble for this incident. So I can see my shipping service here, talking to MySQL, and sure enough, there is a massive spike in garbage collection. Error logs have gone through the roof. Latency has spiked up with this specific endpoints. And if I scroll down, I see my MySQL barfing out with lots of bytes. It's just somebody's sending a lot of big queries, and it's sending out a lot of bytes. What I really want to point out is that there's a latency anomaly here. There's no request anomaly here. which is interesting, right? We always ask, like, hey, is that a traffic spike? That's why this got slowed down. Looks like there's no traffic spike, but the latency did spike here. So now let's start looking into more, right? It's getting more interesting. So we got a garbage collection high. I probably want to look at a Grafana dashboard, right? So let's look at the Grafana dashboard by launching the KPI dashboard here. I mean, obviously, we didn't invent Grafana. We loved Grafana. We just used it. So this is a Spring Boot application spreading micrometer metrics. And so you can now look at your collections, your pause durations, and everything that has gone up, if you want to tune them. And then quickly switching back to the main workbench here, you had a latency anomaly. So maybe traces are interesting. So we're going to launch on traces. Your traces are already in tempo. So it's filtering out the traces which are interesting with name equal to shipping, and the request context, the URI, being city scored. So quickly click on it, go to the line of code. You guys have done this thing before, but it's filtered out. It's contextual. It's collated, all in one place. So I'm troubleshooting this incident. I do not want to leave this screen. That is the idea. Do not open 20 tabs. Open one tab, the workbench, and you should be set. So that's Asserts for you. That's what, and I'm super excited about all the key innovations we're can bring in by working on the Grafana Cloud platform. So next slide. So if you love what you just saw, please come and check us out in our Ask Me Expert booth and the demo booth. We'd love to talk more about it. At Grafana Labs, we are able to ingest your metrics, traces, and logs. We have the infrastructure, the application. We're going to bring it all together into one unified world and start asserting on them. So come join the journey. And I'm super excited about meeting you all. And we'll keep seeing you. And now, I want to hand it over to my esteemed colleague, Mark Chiperas, who is one of my 1,000 new friends that I've made in Grafana Labs. So we'll talk about all the ML and AI and key innovations going on. Thank you, Mark.
Welcome to the team. Couldn't be happier. It's so excited to have Manoj and team as part of Grafana Labs. I feel like I've been talking to them for months about their solutions, and it's such a great fit for where we are and where we're going. Really happy to keep innovating. My name is Mark Chiperas. I'm a Senior Engineering Director here at Grafana Labs, and I really want to talk to you about some of our investments in machine learning and AI. You may have heard that some people are talking about machine learning and AI out maybe on the Twitter or something like this. You've seen lots of talk going around there. We have historically at Grafana had some very targeted investments, whether that's adaptive thresholds, forecasting, or outlier detection. These are all tools available to you in Grafana Cloud today, and we're seeing great uptake and the ability to solve problems quickly. Well, we want to continue with this really focused, pragmatic approach to using machine learning and generative AI as we continue to move forward. Because what we're seeing is there does not seem to be a generalized solution, which is one magic bullet that solves all your observability problems. That being said, Manoj and I are going to keep working together in order to be able to make that happen. So what we want to do is we want to bring generative AI together as a tool to enable you and your developers and your friends in order to be able to use it across Grafana. And this is including large language models as well as retrieval augmented generation. And we're going to expose that for consumption by your teams. Now, as we're thinking about machine learning and AI, we have some very focused, targeted goals that we're going through as we're thinking about it. We want to make sure we're minimizing toil for your DevOps teams so they can use our tools very quickly and effectively, especially in times of urgency. We want to ensure that we're accelerating their understanding of your logs, metrics, traces, and profiles, and being able to understand your new deployments or your instance as fast as possible. And finally, we know that one of the most important things that we need to focus on from a machine learning perspective is reducing noise. Your DevOps engineers have enough on their plate. If we're adding more alerts and more noise, all we're doing is we're adding context switching for them, and and that's only reducing the velocity that they're delivering value to your customers and delivery there. The other thing we're thinking about when with generative AI here at Grafana is we want to do this the Grafana way, right? And this, just like Raj said, we are all about open source. Open source is our DNA, and with generative AI, we're doing nothing different. We're developing in the open so that your teams can contribute and understand what we're doing. We're also developing generative AI in a very big tent way, right? Large language models are changing very, very quickly. We don't want to tie you into one or the other. We want to have the ability so that you can work with many different large language models depending on what actually suits your team's needs. And finally, we're allowing you to work in a transparent way. That means that we're working with open data sets, with open prompts, and open source development, so your team can know what's going on, what you're sending into this black box that is the large language model, and feel confident in your security as well as the results you're receiving. So today I want to announce the Grafana LLM app. This is an open source app. It's available. You can install it in your open source cluster, in your enterprise cluster, or even cloud. And this will enable you to configure your large language model and enable generative AI features across Grafana. And so this is open source today. Love your insights and contributions to this app as well. Let's go through and talk about some of the feature sets that generative AI and this LLM app are actually allowing us to do. Let's go ahead and look at a demo on how the dashboard assistant is working. This is a small piece where we can actually minimize toil for your team. We can go here and generate a new title based on the context of your panel. Title, nobody writes descriptions. Let's go ahead and auto-generate a description here for what's actually happening with this panel. And then let's actually improve it. I want this to be a little bit more descriptive. And we can actually have a descriptive definition of what the panel is. What I really like about this is it's going into the configuration of your panel here and actually showing, here's the threshold. That's what's here in the configuration. So you're actually pulling all that description into one area. Again, this is not a game changer, but it's a nice delighter feature and helps to minimize toil for your team to make your overall observability system better. Next slide. We're doing this in other places as well. This is a screen cap from Grafana Incident. Who's using Grafana Incident today? All right, we got a few over here. Thank you, Merle, for actually solving this SLO breach incident during the keynote here. Let's do a demo on how we might use Grafana or the LLM app in order to auto-generate a summary for this incident. Again, we've gone ahead and having the LLM app it auto-instruments this generate auto summary. We can take the context of the incident, send it over to the LLM, and auto-generate a summary. This improves your engineers' ability to communicate with stakeholders and actually deliver PIRs as well, right? A nice delighter feature to accelerate your team. Next slide. And finally, I want to show you the Query Advisor. One of the more complex tasks, let's go ahead and start a demo here. One of the more complex tasks that your team has to do is actually to write PromQL queries. Well, wouldn't it be nice if we could actually have an assistant to push that forward? And this is another way we're using LLM as a tool in order to make complex tasks easier. Here we've auto-generated a number of different possible queries with LLM-generated summaries of what those queries are actually doing for you. And if those aren't enough, we allow you to have human-readable text in order to generate queries for your PromQL as well. Go ahead and submit that. There we go. Let's get some CPU by job and go ahead and visualize that as well. So again, really nice ways that we're starting to move forward with generative AI, and this is really just the tip of where we can be, because now this is available as a tool. Your team, my team, and others can continue to innovate here. All right, what else is on? Let's go ahead and talk about Sift. Sift is our brand new announcement that we're making here that allows us to help your teams quickly identify what is changing in the system. One of the problems we deal with, whether we're dealing with alerts, escalations, incidents, or even when you see changes in patterns in your Explore system, we don't quite know what's going on. We can look at that specific metric, but we want to look at the whole corpus of your observability signals. Sift is a tool that allows us to look more broadly about what's going on around the incident that I'm occurring, not just the specific metric. And this allows us to look across observability signals and be able to understand what's happening. Here's an example from, maybe this is from the SLO incident that Merle solved here, where we've actually generated a Sift summary, a Sift investigation. It's actually gone ahead and looked at through a number of different interesting results where we can look across the system to understand what's going on. Here we're showing resource contention on high CPU throttling on the service that the SLO is breaching on. We've also looked into traces in order to be able to understand the slow requests that are occurring going through this system as well. Or we can also look into the error patterns on the logs that are occurring for the service in question for the SLO that's breaching here. We're using an algorithm called Drain in order to get patterns for all of those logs and understand the change in not individual log lines, but the patterns that we're seeing over time. In this case, we've had password authentication has failed for the user Postgres, and this is different during the incident than it was 24 hours ago. For your on-call engineer who's dealing with this alert or this escalation, automatically highlights the log lines that are in question here, shows you a graph of how we're seeing those change during the incident that's happening here, which is a great step in order to be able to provide the context your engineer needs to solve this problem. Well, we can also use our large language model in order to enhance that even further. So in this case, we're taking that specific log line that's increased, giving us the description of what that log line means, and then giving you two possible solutions on how you might move it forward. It's a very simple use case here, but for your engineer who's on call, who's dealing with a situation of urgency, a metric alarm going off, we automatically found the logs that are associated with it, the specific log lines, and help them suggest a solution. Now, this might not be the exact answer to the problem, but we're accelerating your on-call engineer. Yeah, so this is how we're thinking about machine learning and generative AI at Grafana today. We want to use it as tools in order to minimize toil. We want to accelerate your engineer's understanding and then reduce the overall noise that they're so they can focus on delivering what's important. All right, well, that's a lot. Let's go ahead and reflect a little bit about what's been going on today. We announced a number of new general availability products, all right? Loki 3.0 with the accelerated queries. Welcome Manoj and team for Asserts and their RCA workbench. We have a brand new application observability product that's moving forward and is GA today. Brand new cost management hub in order to be able to ensure you're not overrunning your costs here with observability. The Grafana SLO product, which my team developed, I'm so excited about it. We didn't really even talk about it today. There's a session on that tomorrow. The eBPF Beyla strategy, as well as the forthcoming adaptive logs. And then with machine learning, we launched the brand new LLM app, which allows you to generate new features, new LLM features across Grafana with Dashboard Assistant, Instant Summarization, Query Advisor, and more. And finally, we announced Sift. Wow, that's a lot. I couldn't be more excited about where we are from an observability strategy here at Grafana and more optimistic about what's going to happen over the next month and years to come. This doesn't happen without the developers on our team, the customers who are here, the partners who are here in order to make us better and actually be able to innovate in this space. It's been really amazing. Thank you so much for all of your support in this area. A key call out goes to all the Grafanistas on the team who continue to grow. We're over 1,300 who helped us kind of innovate here. And finally, today there's an event with over almost 1,000 viewers online. Doesn't happen with the event staff that's here in the room in order to push this together. So thank you so much to all the events team. Well, this is a spectacular way to kick off the conference. We have lots of sessions coming up today and tomorrow as we move forward. Thank you very much for joining us today. All right.